So here we are. It's our first podcast ever. I'd like to introduce ourselves. We're the Geek Philosophers. We are brand new to recording our own podcasts. We'd heard quite a few of them before. And just want to mention right off the top.
Were we supposed to listen to podcasts before this?
Yes, you probably should have listened to at least a few seconds of a podcast, yes.
Okay.
So half of us have heard a few podcasts before. Just wanted to say right off the top that we are not spoiler free. In other words, there are going to be spoilers, and we strongly recommend that you watch whatever our material is before you listen to our podcasts. Now, to get to us, I'm Billy. I'm a middle-aged nerd, a geek, self-proclaimed, and I'll hand it over to Yan.
I'm Yan. I'm, I guess, middle-aged too. Not quite as middle-aged as Bill.
Yeah.
I'm also like very jockey and sporty and not geeky at all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just about as nerdy as Bill is.
He is not jockey. So anyways, we'll get right to it, because the point of what we want to do is not bore you to death. We've always considered ourselves to be not movie connoisseurs, not film, TV, whatever it is, connoisseurs, but we've always had a pretty
professional
strong
binge watchers.
That's it. Yeah, we like to watch stuff, and we like to criticize stuff. So we figured, let's give this a try. So today's topic is going to be Black Panther. We actually just came back from the theater from seeing it. Yan, how did the theater experience go for you?
Before the previews even started, I dumped my entire popcorn on the floor, which is fantastic. That's like $80 down the drain.
And we're not talking a small or a kiddie box of popcorn here. We're talking a full-on, big old Cochon-style popcorn, and there wasn't a single kernel left in the bag. So we were stepping all over popcorn for the entirety of the movie.
The floor wasn't too dirty. I could have technically picked it up off the floor, but
You could have scooped it up. You could have, but who knows what you would have gotten from that. So I guess we'll get right to it. Did you want to start off with your thoughts right off the top with this movie? Go ahead.
My initial thoughts is it kind of follows the typical Marvel storyline, I guess we can say. Good use of humor in it, good action scenes. I myself had, until I think it was Age of Ultron, I had never even heard of Black Panther, so this whole solo movie was brand new. I went into it not knowing a thing about any of the Black Panther lore. I don't know about you, Bill. Had you heard of him before?
Not a whole lot. I'd heard of him through the comics a little bit, but...
So overall, I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, it was a good flick, and you know what? We'll get into the detail here because, and we'll give it a rating at the end. Just once again, before we actually get into the meat and potatoes here, if you have not seen the movie and you don't want it spoiled, I'd recommend you switch to a different podcast right now.
Press stop right now.
Because we're going to start talking about it here. So, the cool thing about Black Panther is, like Yan said, it's not so much an origin story per se. He's not just a normal guy to begin with. He's actually Black Panther, and this is on the heels of, correct me if I'm wrong, but Civil War, right?
Yeah, so I think if memory serves, he showed up for the first time in Age of Ultron, and then he came back in Civil War.
Okay.
He had a few scenes in Civil War, and then he got his own solo flick.
Yeah. So he's actually Black Panther at the start of this with the suit and everything like that and all the skills. You just don't know at this point how he got these skills or anything like that. So before they actually get to him actually kicking any ass or anything, is you see this important scene right at the start, and it's a flashback to 1992, where you see these two young men, and they're planning on stealing something. You're not totally sure what they're stealing at this point or why. And, a man storms in and, claims to be his brother. He mentions that they are brothers in this scene. And
not of Black Panther, but the two men in the scene.
Yeah, you're not really sure who they are at this point, but you get the feel for the fact that the guy that stormed in is actually Black Panther at the time, and he's the king.
Yeah.
So you can kind of put a few things together and assume that this is, the now Black Panther. And incidentally, his name is T'Challa.
Well, that's the current one.
That's the current one. Yeah.
Today's Black Panther.
Today's Black Panther, the new Black Panther. So you can assume that this is his father. So you can see where he's busting up this nefarious, no good doing. this is where they also show you that anyone who's in this ring that you assume that the Black Panther group, or the tribe or wherever they're from, they inside their bottom lip they have a tattoo of sorts that seems almost like their
Glows
entry
in the
ticket.
dark.
Yeah, it glows in the dark. It's almost like their stamp. You know when you'd go into the dance club and you'd get that stamp that they can only see with the black light?
That's
It's
how
kinda
you're
like
allowed
that.
back into the country. It's your passport.
Yeah. Except it's on the inside of the bottom lip for some reason. So, anyways, you see these guys come in, and they break up what's going on, and you can see they're at odds about something here. So that gets broken up, and that scene. Is there anything more that we should mention about that scene? Because it is important. That's why I want to focus on the detail there.
I don't think we need to discuss the actual details of what, I don't know, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Okay, so that's all you need to know at this point.
I guess after that scene, though, something that's good to know is the timeline of the movie actually happens almost right after the last time we've seen Black Panther. So right after Civil War, those events, and the whole, I guess, Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, this movie actually happens right after those events. So whatever's happened, other movies where you've seen Black Panther, that's happened. So it's not an origin story, like Bill said. You don't go back into time to see how everything started. The movie kind of just picks up where Black Panther left off.
Yeah. So interesting to note, and is that someone does die in that older scene, and it turns out to be the one of the guys that was up to the nefarious goods.
Yeah.
So you just need to know that for now. But now we get to the present day, and you can see where Black Panther's Black Panther, and he's actually fighting for the side of good. He's got some random mission they start on, and you kind of meet some of the main characters. And you see where one of them happens to be, and this kind of seems like his right-hand man or woman, we should say, through the whole thing. And I don't really know what her name is, the actress in real life, but she plays Michonne on The Walking Dead. And no word of a lie, if you think she's pretty killer in Walking Dead, I find she's even more so in this.
Oh yeah, she's definitely not somebody I would mess with.
No, and the thing is, she doesn't have any real superpowers, right?
No.
She doesn't have any superpowers. So she's kind of like his right-hand woman, so to speak, and she's pretty cool.
She doesn't have her samurai sword, but she does have a spear that she uses pretty good.
It's a pretty cool spear, and it seems like it just mashes down into nothing in the palm of her hand, right? So, so what you find out pretty quick on in is that his dad actually died in, from what you told me, Age of Ultron is when his dad actually died?
Yeah, well, I'm just going based on memory here, but I'm pretty sure in Age of Ultron is when they had the big UN meeting, and his dad was speaking there on behalf of their home country of Wakanda. And that's where there was...
It's Wakanda, by the way.
Wakanda?
Yeah.
Whatever. There was some kind of a attack, and I can't remember if it's Ultron that attacked at that point, but they blew up the UN meeting, and his dad died at that meeting.
Yeah, so at this point, Wakanda, which is the country they're from, and I guess we should talk about Wakanda, because this is a point in the movie where you're kind of introduced to Wakanda, and it's kind of funny because it's kind of in the middle of Africa where they zoned in on the map and everything. And what did that remind you of? How it's hidden? Because it's hidden from view. It just looks like bush to everybody else. What did that remind you of fairly recently?
Oh, the from Justice League there? The Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman, yeah. I just thought this is exactly the same, where you have the one person with powers, and you have a bunch of other minions who are really strong all around her.
That's true,
right?
yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, so he's like one of the head dudes. She was the princess.
Yep.
He's the prince to start off with, right? So anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny because it's so parallel. Anyway, so they don't have a king right now, and the way this works out is that you have to actually fight to challenge for the king. You can't just be the king's son and king's oldest son, and have
take the throne. Yeah, because they said there's 4 or 5 tribes that live there.
Yeah.
And every time the king kind of passes, it legally goes to the oldest son. But all the other tribes have a chance to challenge for the throne. So basically, if they don't think that he's the right fit to rule them, they can offer up a challenger, and then they fight to see who will take the throne.
That's it. So we have this scene that happens, and it's pretty cool. And I guess this is a good point to mention that the visuals in this movie are some of the most beautiful I've seen in Marvel.
Oh yeah, great visuals, great special effects.
Excellent
too.
effects.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the effects, the interesting thing about Wakanda is, so picture that the bush just disappears, and here's this amazing futuristic metropolis of Wakanda, right? So it looks nothing like the grass huts and desert plains and everything that you'd expect. Well, how would you describe it?
Yeah, well, I guess to the world, because at least what's different here against compared to Wonder Woman is nobody knew about, I forget what their island is called in Wonder Woman. I don't think it's Atlantis, but anyways, nobody knew it existed. It just looked like ocean. But here, there's actually a country of Wakanda that the world knows, but the world knows it as the poorest country. It's got nothing. It's got no resources. It's got nothing to trade for, and everybody just knows that it's a third world country basically. But then when you actually go there, you see that their technology is way advanced to everywhere else in the world. And I find that was the one thing that I didn't like about the movie is I get that they're technologically advanced and everything, but the explanation that they give is that way back in how many years ago they discovered this vibranium metal, and that's how they got super smart and super technologically advanced. That's how they create Black Panther's armor, for example. That's how they create their weapons.
Spaceships, pretty much.
Yeah, spaceships and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how discovering a metal just automatically makes you a genius.
I guess it's used different ways. You know what I kind of felt is that vibranium in this was almost like, for the Avengers movie, it was almost like the Tesseract. Where it was this all-powerful thing, but you're not quite sure how it's used or never explained how it's used.
Really, if you think about X-Men, they, created adamantium or discovered it, but they just threw that on a guy's bones and made him indestructible because that's all it is. It's a metal, right? Like, it doesn't automatically make you able to travel through space and whatnot. Yeah. So that's kind of the one thing that I thought, well, this is kind of a long shot. It's a weird space metal that landed in Africa, but the fact that it just automatically propelled them, hundreds and hundreds of years technologically compared to the rest of the world, I found pretty much of a long shot. And that was, I find, my main gripe with the movie throughout.
Yeah.
Was the use of, and Bill mentioned, they have these really advanced spacecrafts. I mean, they don't go into space in the movie, but they might as well have, because these flying ships that they have, are compared to what the world has, like, they're even more advanced than, I'd say, Iron Man.
Oh, yeah.
Iron Man's got some...
Tony Stark doesn't hold a
candle
to these
not
guys.
At all. And I'm just thinking, like, you guys are sharing the planet. The whole planet is dying at this point. Like, global warming and all climate change and whatnot. Like, all of that's still going on, and these guys are basically living in a futuristic bubble, and they're doing nothing to help the planet.
That's true, but that ties into the story later on, which is kind of funny, because you might have been one of the bad guys when it comes down to it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to foreshadow much at all. So, I guess the vibranium is essentially in this little hub and this kind of mountainish area that they kind of hang out in. So, just to kind of continue on, so T'Challa, who is Black Panther at this point, and will be Black Panther, and is the guy you see on all the movie posters, he fights, and just to kind of shorten this a little bit, he wins. He beats the one challenger from the other tribes, everything like that. So, everything's yay, hoo-ah, everything like that. Then we find out that in the States, I believe it is, the States, a museum artifact, a weapon, is actually stolen. And it turns out to be stolen by a guy named Claw. Ulysses Claw is the name I caught, and it's actually Andy Serkis that plays him. Funny note about Andy Serkis, I don't think aside from Lord of the Rings I've seen his face.
No, I think this is the first time we actually see Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
That's not a monkey. An award show.
He's not a monkey, and
he's not that weird, emaciated hobbit.
Or he's not Snoke from Star Wars, right? So he's usually behind some CG something or other. So anyways, Andy Serkis, and he does a great job of it. He's a bad guy, and they kind of portray him like he's going to be the bad guy, right? And he's great.
Spoiler alert.
That's all right. I told you. I warned even you at the start of this there were going to be many spoilers. Sir, Andy Serkis winds up being part of a crew that steals this, he's got another guy that seems more like a henchman that's with them to help steal this. Turns out that the blade of this weapon that they steal from the museum is that vibranium that we've been, harping on a little bit, right? So one thing happens, another, and then the guys at Wakanda find out that the vibranium's been stolen, and that vibranium actually exists outside of Wakanda, which I think was the big deal, because I found there was a point where I was like, why do they care so much about this little smidge of vibranium?
Yeah.
When they're sitting on a mountain of it, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember. I mean, later on, you're introduced to a CIA guy who seems to be well aware of what vibranium is. And that's where my memory fails me. I don't remember where that guy comes from. And I think it's, what's his name, Martin Sheen?
No, he's Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman, that's it, yeah. From, well, The Hobbit. And he played something in a previous Marvel movie because they're acquainted. Him and Black Panther know each other.
They know each other, yeah. But Martin Freeman, if we can stay on that topic, because I really like Martin Freeman. Aside from The Hobbit, he was in the first season of Fargo, and he was also in
Sherlock.
Sherlock, yeah, which he's great in. And the funny thing about him in this, and I guess a lot of actors and actresses are doing it lately, a lot of British actors and actresses pretending to be American, and I'm amazed at how well they can cover up their accents.
Yeah.
He is no different, right? He's so good at that, and I found he was good in this. There's something about him later on I'd like to discuss, which is I just kind of found it was a bit hokey, but we'll just keep rolling with this here, okay? So they wind up stealing this chunk of vibranium, and then there's a big, really exciting scene in, I believe, what they say, South Korea? No, not South Korea.
South Korea.
Was it South Korea?
Yeah.
So
the fancy underground casino.
Yeah, was it ever fancy?
I gotta go to one of those one day. You know, like I just want to be able to go into some divey kitchen restaurant, go through like a trap door and have like dancing women everywhere and the big like club life. And well, I mean, I can't afford to play any of those games, but still.
Where you got to show, just kind of show a pass, or just kind of say a password to the.
Just a lip tattoo or something.
Yeah. That's it.
Pull my bottom lip down.
Monday morning, we're getting lip tattoos. Will it get us in anywhere? Probably not, but we could say that we have it just in case.
It'll get us kicked out of many places.
So they go to this underground casino, and this is where the deal is happening. This is where we actually get introduced to Martin Freeman's character. Name escapes me right now, but it turns out he's in CIA with the FBI or FBI.
I don't
CIA.
know where he came from. Do you remember which movie he was in first? Like where they would have been introduced?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. He was on an adventure. So then this is where the deal's going down. He's got a separate mission where he's just trying to catch, I believe it's Claw. They're all trying to catch the same guy. They're all trying to.
He's going there to deal to get swap diamonds to get the vibranium.
Okay.
They're going to buy the vibranium from.
Yeah.
Smeagol.
What turns out happening is this really exciting kind of fight scene in the casino, and a really cool car scene that happens too.
Yeah.
And the end result is they wind up actually catching Claw, and they get the chunk of vibranium. So vibranium secured, nothing really much to do with that anymore. It was a means to an end, and they've got this Claw. He winds up getting broken. They kind of interrogate him a little bit and everything like that, and his cronies, one of the ones that helped him steal the vibranium, actually released him. Turns out totally turning on him. So this is his crony turns out, and then we find out something. They find out something that's, this is where the story comes back to that first initial scene. We find out who's the guy, the crony that turned on him.
The guy's son, the guy that got murdered in that first scene.
Yeah.
His son.
So it's his son. So he's looking for revenge. He's been stuck in the States. I think it seemed like he was in orphanages because he was left there as a young boy.
Yeah.
Alone. But with aspirations. His dad had told him about Wakanda, but he never had a chance to go there. So I guess what it boils down to is Black Panther's cousin.
Pretty much, yeah.
T'Challa's cousin.
Yeah, okay, we're awful with names.
Yes. We do not have Google in front of us. This is going by memory, and we literally saw the movie a half an hour ago. So here, this is where the end story, the second half, the second act starts coming into play. And this is where this guy, and I don't know what his name is. What's his cousin's name?
Alex James or something like that?
Was it Alex?
Yeah.
He had a very American name.
Well, he was from Oakland, California. That's where that first scene took place.
Yeah, so we'll call him Alex. For the rest of this, if you hear us say Alex, it's Black Panther's cousin. So he winds up making his way to Wakanda and showing his tattoo, showing who he is and everything like this, and claiming that Black Panther's dad, the king at the time, is actually murdered his brother and whatnot. So this causes a big rift. turns out that there's a bit of a fight scene, everything like that. The same type of challenge we talked about earlier happens between these two. Oh, while we're talking about challenges, pretty interesting how Black Panther gets his powers, because we know about this early on. So go ahead and explain how he gets his powers.
Yeah, so before they do the challenge, obviously it wouldn't be fair because Black Panther, as we know, we've seen him, fight Captain America and kind of hold his own against him. So obviously we know that he's a superhuman. He's not just a regular guy. And the way that this happens is when the vibranium landed from space, I guess it did something to the soil, and these weird glowing purple flowers, what do they call them? The heart plants?
No clue.
Basically, these flowers came up, and they take the buds from these flowers, mash it up into liquid, and when you drink it, you become, the superhuman with super strength and whatnot. So that's how, and I guess it's only the king that gets to drink this stuff, and that's part of the crowning ceremony. But for the challenge, it's not fair. Obviously, if your king has this super juice in him, and the challenger doesn't, so they actually give him, and they never explain what they give. They give him another dose, and it takes all the powers away, and he's just back to normal at that point.
They tell you how you get the powers, and you drink the purple juice, but they give them some other purple juice and make him drink it. He gets black veins all over his face, and then he loses his powers. He is a normal
mortal. Then he's just regular Panther after that. But anyway, so they take away his juju, and then he fights this guy, and then whoever wins that challenge at that point gets to drink the juice again. And then they bury you in the sand for some reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure where and it looked pretty annoying.
Yeah.
If someone buried my eyes in the sand, I wouldn't want. You could bury me up to my face there, but if you throw sand in my eyes, I wouldn't be able to have a good rest and go to the astral plane or an ancestral plane or whatever that was.
So that's exactly what happens. Is once you drink the juice, I guess you pass out and they bury you, and your mind goes to the astral plane where you meet the ancestors who are all the old kings, or at least he does at that point. Something else happens different for the later on.
It's your happy place is what it comes down to.
Well, I don't know. The other guy was crying when he got there, so.
Well, I mean, okay, your comfortable place, because dude was in his apartment with his dad, right?
Yeah, but he was crying, so it wasn't happy.
Yeah, it was happy. You can cry when you're happy.
No.
Why not? So that's the deal with that. And I guess just to come back to where we are, so T'Challa actually loses against his cousin, which makes his cousin the new king. So not only that, but T'Challa goes way over the deep end off. That's the thing about this challenge as well, is that they do it right pretty much on the side of where a waterfall would go over. And what I found was a bit unfair is, as if you're trying to fight someone, and as you're fighting them, and you're knuckling down, it's not one way or the other. But you got people with spears starting, they'd surround them with people with spears like guards, and they'd take a step closer and closer to them and closer to them.
Well, otherwise the fight would last forever. This is just forcing them, get her done, boys.
Holy moly. But that's pressure. Why add that kind of pressure onto a fight, honestly?
Don't challenge the king at that point.
I've been in a few fights,
if you can't handle that negativity in your life, then don't challenge the king. Simple as that.
Just seems really unfair. So his cousin, Alex, I guess, winds up being... And the thing is, when his cousin becomes king, you can really tell that he doesn't mean to be a good king. He means to be a good king for his people, but not necessarily for everyone else, let's say. The world could turn into chaos, although his ideals are to essentially say that his people have always had the underhand across the world, so why not, and this kind of comes down to what you said earlier, why not take all these resources you have in Wakanda and spread them across the world? Give your people all across the world weapons, all this technology, everything like that, to rise up and essentially overthrow governments, overthrow politicians.
Well, I'm okay with not giving them weapons, but honestly, I think we can all agree that the world is not the best place that it can be pollution-wise. And they're all sharing the same planet. So that was my main gripe. I'm like, hey, you guys have all these seemingly clean flying spaceships that don't produce pollution, and yet you're letting people fly, these other things and
so this is
cars.
A fossil fuel thing for
Pretty
you.
Pretty much, yeah. Leave the dinosaurs alone. Let them rest in peace already, and use whatever purple flower juice they put in the planes there.
Yeah, that's true. It does seem, because they had a lot of different, even trains.
Yeah, they had these magnetic trains, and Martin
Freeman.
Bush, whatever, Freeman. I can't. I'm usually good with names, but for some reason, yeah. But he, at one point, he sees the trains and he's like, "Are these magnetic something trains?" And the one girl is like, "Well, obviously." And he's like, "Hey, well, these are running way more efficiently than what we have." And I think the only one I know of is in Japan right now. And obviously, I mean, it's a great train, but they've mastered these technologies and they're just letting everybody figure stuff out. Like, that's not cool, guys.
Now that you're on the topic of Martin Freeman just kind of rubbing elbows with them in Wakanda, because I guess I didn't mention this, but you can't really tell all the detail, but Martin Freeman gets shot at a certain point and gets brought back to Wakanda at the behest on the... Anyways,
he saved one of the girls. She was going to get shot, but he jumped in front of the bullet, because he's a good guy.
T'Challa, Black Panther, he says, "Come on, bring them back, because they can heal wounds, of course." Why would you help the rest of the world heal wounds?
You discovered metal. Of course you can heal bullet wounds overnight.
And why would you ever want to help the rest of the world with anything like that?
Jerks.
So, Martin Freeman at this point, and if you recall, when they first met his character, they were like, he's not to speak with this guy for more than 5 minutes. They didn't trust him as far as they can throw him. And then by the midway through the movie, they're like, he's in their stronghold where I thought you needed a lip tattoo to get into.
I don't know.
He didn't have a lip tattoo.
No, I don't know what he did to get in there, but...
So he's in there. He's rubbing elbows with them. They even have him flying their fighters, and he's doing...
I mean, he did steal that jewel from the dragon in The Hobbit, so maybe he just filtered his way in.
That's true. He is pretty convincing. Yeah, halflings have a certain way with other cultures. So anyways, I just thought I'd make a point of that. So just to kind of wrap this up here, the end result is you got Evil King up there now, this Alex guy.
Turns out his name's Eric, by the way.
Eric?
Yeah.
Alex/Eric is the Evil King, and T'Challa's nowhere to be found. But it turns out that a certain tribe that's involved in this is a tribe, incidentally, that doesn't really believe in all of this.
Well, they're the ones that challenged T'Challa at his crowning ceremony.
Yeah. So you thought they'd be, vengeful or whatnot. They actually found T'Challa, kind of brought him back to life. He was in a coma and whatnot. But before the Mad King, actually, I'm not talking about who's the Mad King.
That's Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Not Aegon Targaryen.
No, not a Targaryen. Before Eric/Alex, the Mad King, actually, part of his rule and his reign was all these flowers that give this purple juju that turn you into Black Panther. He torched them all. But T'Challa's family members grabbed one and wound up bringing it to him, popping it in his mouth. Or his mom mashed it up. Oh, speaking of his mom, let's talk about her. She's the gal from American Horror Story, isn't
Angela Bassett.
Yeah, she's in everything these days.
She's great. I love her.
We even saw, correct me if I'm wrong, but the previews for this movie, she was in something else. I saw her in the previews for some other movie that's right now. Or coming. Anyways.
I didn't notice.
She's in a lot of stuff. She's excellent, yeah. And that's the cool thing I'd like to point out here, too, is the cast in this were really good. Everyone was spot on, right? Mm-hmm. So, so they bring T'Challa back to life.
Well, I guess at this point they don't know that T'Challa's still alive. At this point they believe he's dead and gone. He fell off the cliff, he's dead. And then they go to see this challenger that had challenged T'Challa for the crown because they said, you know what? Yeah, he didn't beat T'Challa, but if we give him this purple flower, he might be able to take it and then overthrow evil...
They were looking for an army.
Evil Eric.
They were looking for an army. They needed help because they were the ousted family. They had no part in there anymore.
Then that's the point where the challenger there kind of saw what their intentions were, and they just wanted to save their country and said, no, we got to help preserve this here. And so he said, well, hang on, I'll show you something. And he brings them to the back room, and he shows that there are people that actually found T'Challa in the river, and they brought him there, and they kind of kept him alive. He was in a coma at the time.
Yeah.
And they had literally put him on ice.
Yeah.
He was just buried in snow.
They bring him back to life, and to kind of clean this up a little bit, they have a big old fight. There's a big old war scene, everything like that, complete with
battle rhinos,
armored rhinoceroses. So the funny thing is, this big fight's going on, and there's, let's call them evil Black Panther and good Black Panther, right? Evil Black Panther, well, I don't know if you noticed, but his younger sister, Black Panther's younger sister, and his girlfriend are holding the fort against evil Black Panther. And I don't know if you noticed, but good Black Panther was getting his ass totally owned by armor rhinos.
Oh yeah, armor rhinos, and they also had this other tribe that had shield cloaks, ponchos or whatever. They would just wave their poncho and a weird shield would show up. So they have a lot of weird
Yeah,
weapons.
they have a lot of weird but good weapons.
Not a lot of guns. They have a lot of spears and
No, they
cloaks
said guns
and
are
swords.
weak. Michonne says guns
Wow.
are weak, so archaic or so.
But then their flying dragonfly ships have guns on them.
Well, those are lasers though.
Oh,
It's
whatever.
different. It's different. So this battle ensues, and kind of this is where you kind of go. It goes according to script, because I found for the
Yeah.
most of this movie, it didn't follow the same type of. I'll call it an origin movie, but it's not really an origin movie. But it didn't follow the same script, except until this part where you know that the big old war is gonna wind up okay, and you know that both Black Panthers are gonna wind up fighting each other, and of course you know who wins out of those two. There's not much else to note there. Black Panther wins, and he's still the king.
Well, you
He's
gotta
still-
specify which. Okay, you can't say Black Panther wins and he's still the king. Cause
Not
at this
Alex
point,
slash Eric Black Panther, not him.
the old new T'Challa. T'Challa.
Yeah,
T'Challa wins, obviously.
yeah.
And even though Eric,
Eric.
even though his whole mission was to help the world, introduce the world that this is our country, this is our technology, we can help you. We're not actually the poorest country in the world. That was his whole goal and then they all thought he was evil and basically killed him. Once T'Challa takes the throne back, that's basically his first order, is they go back to California where his dad and his uncle had their fight at the start of this movie, and he ends up buying the apartment building that happened in, and he's basically going to build a Wakanda outreach center there to basically show off their science and technology, all their advancements there, and also have a social outreach program, I think he said.
Something like that, yeah. Maybe animal hospital.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for rhinos.
Rhinos and panthers.
Rhino armor plating facility.
A rhino blacksmith.
So yeah, that's pretty much the movie. Just any random thoughts? Do you have any random thoughts about the movie at all? Have you gotten over the popcorn thing at all?
No, I'm still a little bit dead inside because of the popcorn, but and that may be what soured the whole movie for me.
I don't think so.
I had no popcorn,
and
I could hear everybody chewing
To be
popcorn
fair, I
around
gave
me.
him half of my popcorn. I didn't need that much.
Gave me
and
the bottom half.
I just was really careful for how I handed it over to him because he's kind of popcorn spilly pants. So overall, really good movie. We'll give it a rating in a second, but really good visuals. Right up there with any of the other Marvel movies of bigger scale. It didn't feel like an origin movie is what the good thing was about it. So if you're expecting one of these long, dry, kind of really talky kind of origin movies that only get action at the end, it couldn't be further from the
No,
truth.
this was action pretty much all the way through.
That's it. Yeah, there's even, I think it was the second scene was actually a fight scene with Black Panther doing his thing. So that's the good thing about it. Acting was solid in it.
Yep.
Everything from the tunes and the sound and everything was as what you'd expect from, complete with a Stan Lee.
Yeah,
he was
obviously. Well, you need a Stan Lee
complete
cameo.
with the cameo, yeah. So he was in the casino doing his thing there, and of course it's funny how you can get Stan Lee to pop in one of these movies. It doesn't matter what he says; people are still gonna laugh.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even find what he said this time was all that funny, but
I don't
people
even
still
remember what
laughed.
he said. I was just laughing.
It didn't matter. Yeah, I couldn't hear what he said. I was laughing too hard.
I just saw Stan Lee and immediate laughing.
So I guess that's kind of the funny and cool thing about it, is that he's a character in his own shows, and good for him, right? So aside from that, I don't think I have anything else I'd like to say about this. What rating would you give this? So our rating system is going to be out of 5. So go ahead and.
The only gripe I had was what I said a while ago, is kind of the technology was too advanced, but story, acting, everything else wise, I give this 4 cat claws out of 5.
Nice. I would actually give it 4.5, so 4.5 vibranium spears wielded by Michonne. or whatever her character is.
She's only got 2 arms, man.
4.5 vibranium spears is what I'd give to this.
I thought you were going to rate this armored rhinos.
Oh, why didn't we do that, right? Maybe next one. So we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back with more episodes in the future. We plan on just starting with movies and TV shows, but you never know what we'll review. Anything that's worth kind of discussing or hyper criticizing.
We like talking, so we'll talk about anything.
As you've seen in the last 35 odd minutes. So until next time, thanks very much for listening, and look forward to you joining us next time.